Hey, podcaster. This is something that's truly ruffling my feathers. And I know I see you out there. You are trying to get your show growing. So you've hired these agencies to pitch you on other shows. Or maybe you are trying to pitch yourself to get on other shows. Well, today I got 6 pitches from agencies that failed big time. And I did not hold back. I let it be a teaching lesson, and the people on the other side, whether they take it as a teaching lesson or not, I don't really care, but this has to change, because if it doesn't change and we keep getting these crappy pitches in our inbox, well, guess what? Hosts are just going to say, screw it. And it's going to become harder and harder and harder to make those connections. So I'm going to give you a couple of things that I'm seeing, some solutions, and of course, I'm going to give you a really cool tool to help you find the right places to pitch and find the right guests for your show. So are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to Beyond the Downloads. I'm Jen, your podcast bestie, here to tell you there's so much more about podcasting than just those numbers. So before you throw in the towel, you better listen up. We're diving deep into the heart of what makes podcasting truly special, from storytelling to connection, and yes, even healing. Think of me as your podcast life raft, ready to help you navigate those choppy waters of this podcasting world and the podcast overwhelm. From understanding the therapeutic power of sharing your voice to the practical tips to grow your show without losing your ever-loving mind. If you're ready to ditch the hustle and create content that leaves a legacy, a tsunami impact, no more ripples. Whether you're launching your first show or looking to take your podcast to the next level, I'm here to help you grow, launch, and yes, make some money from your passion. Let's make your podcasting dreams your reality. It's time to go beyond the downloads, where your story becomes a legacy. Okay, I'm going to take a deep breath because my feathers are officially ruffled. And the reason is that we get so many pitches every day as podcast hosts that are terrible. I don't know how these places and how these services are charging so much and getting you booked on shows when we're seeing pitches come through that don't even make sense. I got 5 today that I turned into teaching lessons for them. And I'm not sure whether they're going to take them as a lesson or they're going to give me the big middle finger and say, who's this Jen person responding back to me saying that I suck and my pitches suck? Well, maybe this works for some people, but I know for me and the people I talk to, it's a big no. So if you are going to go out and guest, you want to start pitching, you want to start building those connections, there's some things you need to do before you pitch us. Come on, people, you can do better. So one of the things is make sure that when you're pitching somebody that it actually, their show is still going on. I got pitched today, July 2nd, for Feed Your Business with Love. I have not published to that show since like October of 2023. That's like 8 months, 9 months that there hasn't been a show. So why am I getting a pitch? And I know that I'm in the system and they're like, oh, we pitched this other person. They were great on your show. We'd like to pitch another person. Well, where they went wrong the first time is they didn't put in what show they wanted me to have this guest on. Then they mentioned another guest that this is how I figured out that it was my other show that I've closed and it's on hiatus, possibly forever. Is because they gave me the name of the guest that they had pitched me 2 years ago. So I'm still in their system. But the email didn't even say what show they were pitching for. So start there. Like, at least open up one of the podcast players. Make sure the show is still, like, dropping regularly. And when you're writing the email, make sure that you tell people, like, I am this guest for X show, and explain why. getting these blanket things of like, oh, here's Joe Schmo and he talks about XYZ and XYZ, XYZ, and he'd be a perfect guest for your podcast. And here's his, rap sheet or media kit and all this other stuff. And here's some pictures. And I think he'd be a great fit. But why? If you haven't done any research to know what show, it's first off the name of the show, and you give me all of these side tangent BS, it's going to be a big fat no. And I don't know how this is working. If you're a podcaster that is so incredibly desperate for guests that you're taking these people that are sending blanket pitches and you're like, oh, maybe this can fit in somehow, I'm going to suggest to you to stop unless there's some sort of benefit. Like maybe that company is going to create extra assets. Maybe they're going to share it in different places. Maybe there's some reason that you've taken it, but don't just grasp at straws. There's amazing services out there. Alex of the Pod Pros has Podmatch. This is one of the best ways to connect to guests, whether you're a host or you want to be with a guest. I'll put the information in the show notes. But Podmatch is like the dating app for podcasters. And it's actually, now that I'm actually dating post-divorce, sometimes it kind of feels like it because you get these random terrible pitches. So I feel like dating and podcast pitching go hand in hand. But in reality, when you're starting to pitch to other shows, you really need to be aware of what the show is about. What's the tone of the show? There were five pitches today, just today. And I could not hold my tongue today. I was in a mood. I was in a little bit of a witty mood. And I was like, hey, I'm going to use this as a teaching agency. By the way, you are pitching a podcast production company. Yeah. So do better, people. Do better. Or what's going to happen is if we keep getting so many people out there doing these terrible pitches, doing these blanket pitches, that no podcaster is ever going to open their email and say yes. And then you're going to have to find other creative ways to get your clients. If you're a podcast guesting agency, you're going to have to find other creative ways to get people on the show and build a network. And it's all about connecting and making conversations and networking. Especially if you're in one of those positions, it's like, okay, start talking to people. Like start talking to podcast hosts. Don't just send over a blanket. I'm not going to accept a blanket. You haven't done any research. Joe Blow is not great for my show because he talks about, I don't know, underwater basket weaving. How is that going to relate to Beyond the Downloads? Building a business and marketing through podcasting and having aligned offers. Like how is that a thing? Like it's not aligned. And because there's so many of them that come in, I don't normally open them. I felt like I needed to open them today just because, I don't know, I was feeling a little spicy. And man, I wasn't rude about stuff, but I'm like, hey, teaching moment. I am a podcast strategist. I teach people this stuff for a living. Let's do better. Let's do better. And one of the ways you can do better is to research the podcast. At least put the podcast name in there. Figure out if the podcast is still active. Listen to the last episode and make sure that it's still aligned for your client. They're paying you, so do your job. Don't just find some email and blanket send to everybody. No, and if you're a podcast host, don't do the same thing either. If you're doing it for yourself, do a little research. Make a little connection. Tell me why it's important. This is one of the things that I have really come to appreciate is when I get a good pitch. That's like, hey, I'd like to come on. Before that turned into Beyond the Downloads, it was your podcast with someone's life rep. I have a great podcast story. This is what happened. XYZ. This is how I got out of it. This is how it affected me and my life and my podcast. I'd love to come share the story with your audience. Here's also what I do and how I tie it into what I do. Is it possible for me to share with your audience? I really appreciated it. I listened to episode whatever, and this was my takeaway. You know what? I'm going to say yes to that. And you know what else I'm also going to do? I'm also going to put some effort into marketing that one because someone took the effort to pitch me. You reap what you sow, or you get what you give, or whatever you want to call it. But these blanket podcast pitches have got to stop. I manage 19 podcasts right now, plus my own. And I see these pitches come into emails all the time. Is this a good guest? Is this a good guest? They're always asking me. And I'm like, I don't know, because it's a blanket pitch. And none of these topics really make sense because their people are just trying to, a lot of the agencies, I'm not going to say all, there's a couple of them out there that I truly, if you need a good agency to do podcast guesting, I have 2 people that I highly recommend. And if you want those people, just reach out to me, Jenn, Jenn at jdragonette.com. Email is the best, or you can find me at Jenn, Jenn.dragonette over on Instagram. But if you need somebody to help you with that, or if you want to pay a service, they are not all are created equal. If you want to actually grow your show, you want them pitching to the right places, and you want those hosts to be aligned and to be promoting and to be growing and to be able to create that network and that collaboration. That's what this is all about. It's not to see how many bad podcasts I can get on to see if it's going to throw spaghetti at the wall and maybe something sticks. Now you're just going to end up with a stain on your wall. Ugh. And then it's going to get moldy and gross and then stagnant. And guess what? It's just not going to work. So please, I am begging you, when you are pitching, put a little effort in. Because if the majority continues to send out these blanket pitches over and over and over again, what's going to happen is no one's going to accept any pitches by email. But this is also why I get most of my guests from Podmatch, because at least people are paying to be there. Even though it's a nominal fee, they're paying to be there. And they're vetted, and they want to be there, and they're going to make some effort. And Alex over at Podmatch is absolutely amazing. And actually, if you're a host, gives you money when you complete interviews of people that you found through Podmatch. It's pretty freaking cool. It's one of the best things ever. But why I wanted to share this with you is that it is so incredibly frustrating to get all these pitches and to hear all the complaints. Because when it comes time to pitch my show and to pitch me to be on shows and talk about your story as someone's life raft and beyond the downloads and how podcasting saved my life, you know what's going to happen? Because there's so many bad ones out there, I'm going to get looked over too, even if I'm pitching correctly. So do better. Do better. That's what I'm asking, is do better. And I know this is kind of a scolding episode and a shake your finger and whatever, but we need these kind of episodes. Because you need to know that when you're pitching, takes time for your host to read. It takes time for them to go through. If you're not even going to put the effort on the forefront to put anything different other than a template and copy and paste my email in, you're going to get the same results. You're going to get the same effort back that you put in, which is nothing. So do better. I want you to do better. I want you to grow. Guesting is one of the fastest ways to grow your network and grow your podcast, because it's a podcast to a podcast. Even if you're pitching to do a collab for a hook or, a special intro or an intro swap, those are always fun. You have to do better with your pitching. Show the host that you actually paid attention to their show somehow. Even if it's a little nugget in there, make sure their show's active. Do better, because, you want to grow, you want to use this as a strategy to network and build, then put some effort in. I mean, sending a blanket thing, I'm not even going to consider that toe dipping. That's you just being a lazy, entitled person that thinks that I'm just going to send out all these blankets and see who gets back. You're going to get some. They're not going to be quality. They might not even be aligned. And for all the people that actually do care and do the marketing and do the stuff for their show, guess what? They're going to just look you over. They're going to put you in the delete bucket. And if you send me a message, I'm going to make it a teaching moment. So beware. I'm kind in my teachings. I'm very kind, but yes. So this is a almost midnight rant. Just got out of the shower in my PJs with my boingy little flamingo headset thing on, because why not? But I had to share this before this feeling went away, and it truly is do better when you're pitching, because if not, you're going to ruin it for everyone, including yourself. And all of it takes is take an extra 10 minutes to research, do a little bit of research, and include that little bit of research in your email. Make sure who you're sending over, if it's you or if you're working for somebody, make sure it's an actual good fit. And share why it's a good fit. Don't just send, here's a bunch of topics for this person that could talk about. That's bull. That's just a bunch of laziness. Well, which topic would be best? And why would it be best for my show? I can guarantee you put effort in, you're going to get the effort back tenfold. Guaranteed. So do better. Do better, podcaster, because you deserve it. You deserve to be shared on other platforms. You deserve to have these collaborations. But you also have to put the effort in that you want back. So I'm done with my rant. I am going to step down from my soapbox and let you go for the day. So go out, make today amazing, because you are beautiful, you are worthy, you are wonderful, and your story deserves the microphone. So go out and do the things and pitch better. I'll talk to you next week.